Does anybody else even remember this show? Or is this another one that's just for me? Here are 5 perfectly awful things about perfect strangers. Number 1, the hokey as hell premise. So, for those of you who don't remember, Perfect Strangers was a sitcom that aired from 1986 to 1993 on the American Broadcasting Company, also known as ABC. For most of its run, Perfect Strangers was part of the network's Friday night programming block called TGIF, where it was joined at various times over the years by Full House, Step by Step, Family Matters, which was actually a spin-off of Perfect Strangers, which a lot of people forget, and lots of other shows that people my age remember fondly, even though they were mostly terrible. The premise of Perfect Strangers could have been cribbed from a writing prompt at the back of a manual on how to write hacky situation comedy. Wide-eyed, innocent Balki Bartakamus, an immigrant from the fictional Mediterranean island nation of Mypos, moves to Chicago to live with his distant cousin Larry Appleton, whom Balki has never met, who didn't know Balki even existed until he shows up at his door in the pilot. So it's a little bit country mouse, city mouse, a little bit odd couple. Balki is earnest, impressionable, but unfailingly honest and generous of spirit. Larry is well-intentioned, but also neurotic and ambitious. So as you can imagine, the possibilities are endless. Which brings me to number 2, the recycled routines and catchphrases. Perfect Strangers was a fairly successful show for most of its run, though it was never quite as popular as its fellow ABC sitcom Full House. It was a top 40 show for 6 of its 8 seasons. With that success came a good deal of creative complacency, however. Around the 4th season, halfway through the run, the show started to settle into a nice, comfortable rut, which it left only rarely from that point on. Catchphrases appeared with greater and greater frequency. "Don't be ridiculous," and "Where do I come up with them?" and "Wow" for Balki. "I have a plan," and "Oh my lord," and "Not me, you idiot, him for Larry. And bits of comedic business from past episodes started to reappear, like when Larry attempts to prove his competence to do a thing by forcing Balki to admit that he's never done the thing. "None, as in zero, as in never, ever have you replaced a showerhead?" That particular bit with the showerhead comes from an episode titled Pipe Dreams, which sees Larry and Balki trying and failing in spectacular fashion to complete a minor bathroom repair in the apartment of Jennifer and Mary Ann, their respective love interests who live just upstairs. And actually, now that I think about it, that episode, Pipe Dreams, is a terrific example of another trope that the writers of Perfect Strangers started to lean on pretty heavily during its middle and later years. Number 3, the stunt episodes. See, the Pipe Dreams episode builds to this big, messy set piece where all of the pipes in the bathroom start to burst one after another, leaving Larry and Balki to get completely drenched while they scramble to shut off the water. It's not so much a joke as it is a spectacle that manages to be funny by virtue of how completely ridiculous it is. In this same vein, there was also the episode where Larry, Balki, Jennifer, and Mary Ann rode river rapids on a rubber raft. Hey, alliteration, they did that a lot too. And the time they were caught in a hurricane, and the time the mountain cabin where they were staying was buried in an avalanche, and the time they, along with the rest of the supporting cast, plus Larry's visiting father, were trapped in the basement of their apartment building as it filled with water. And how could I leave out the last episode of the series, which has Jennifer giving birth to her and Larry's son in the basket of a flying hot air balloon while Larry and Balki dangle precariously below, having fallen out of the basket. As you can tell, eventually the writers of Perfect Strangers started spending time dreaming up zanier and zanier situations for Larry and Balki and company to find themselves in, rather than, writing jokes. The wit of the show, which was never razor sharp to begin with, certainly dulled as the years wore on. But one thing Perfect Strangers never lost was number 4, the schmaltzy feel-good moments. You know, this is the point in the video where I think I'm going to have to pivot from this was a bad show to but I loved it anyway, god damn it. Because yes, the heartwarming moments that ended many of the episodes where Larry would apologize to Balky for going too far in his latest scheme, and Balky would offer a gentle lesson and forgive his cousin, felt totally manufactured and manipulative, right down to the maudlin music that always faded in right on cue. But I've discovered something about myself in my late 30s that I don't think was always there. I prefer clumsily executed heart to skillfully executed cynicism. I would much rather have a show that tries to speak to the goodness in people, that tries to leave the audience with something positive, however awkward and artless the attempt, than have a show where the message is everything sucks and only fools care. Maybe I'm getting sentimental in my early pre-middle age. And you know, speaking of sentimental, there's no way I could possibly do a video about Perfect Strangers without mentioning number 5, the theme song. Standing tall on the wings of my dreams. See, I can't do it justice, and I don't have clearance for it, so I can't play it for you. But anyone who remembers Perfect Strangers remembers that theme song, that big go-for-broke, mawkish masterpiece of a main title melody. It's the, pardon me, perfect theme for the show, because like the show, it's broad, unsophisticated, shamelessly eager to please, and incredibly endearing and likable and tough to forget. I can't say that Perfect Strangers was ever a great show, but it will always be one of my very favorite shows. And that's thanks mostly to the performances of the 2 leads, Mark Lynn Baker as Larry, Bronson Pinchot as Balky, who made up for lackluster scripts with chemistry and skill and some of the most exquisitely timed physical comedy you'd ever hope to see on a sitcom. And sure, the messaging was heavy-handed at times, but the messages were worth hearing. At the end of the day, Larry and Balky were good people who cared about being good, who helped each other and their friends, who tried to do the right thing, even though sometimes, okay, most of the time, Larry needed his arm twisted a little. Hey, nobody's perfect. Oh, I did it again. Sorry, I better wrap this up. I'm getting to that point in talking about Perfect Strangers where I'm starting to mimic the show's ubiquitous but not so clever wordplay. I've done it a few times already, and nothing's going to stop me now. The hardest part is picking only 5. Catch you next time. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks for watching.